Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar during Fit for All Week. This evening, we're going to look at inclusive fitness from an LSP perspective. And today we have three panel members, all representing the local sports partnerships. So first up is Orla Dempsey, the Sport Inclusion Disability Officer from Longford Sports Partnership.
Hi everybody, I'm involved in Longford Sports Partnership for the last year at the SIDO. I got involved in sports at a very young age. I was involved in deaf basketball because I acquired my disability at a young age. I'm involved in numerous sports over the years, which gave me the interest in getting involved in coaching and all that side of things. I studied sports and recreation and leisure in WIT, and this led me on to my career in the Waterford Centre for Independent Living, where I got to meet people with disabilities in the home environment and got them involved in activities at home and in their local area. I then went on to work in the Irish Wheelchair Association for 14 years, which gave me a great insight into the physical disabilities area and that. And then this led me into the Longford Sports Partnership, in which I'm based in Longford, working on the ground with all types of disabilities.
Great, Orla, thanks very much. And a huge amount of experience there, and we'll be looking forward to tapping into that as we go through the webinar this evening. Thanks a million, Orla. Next up is Elaine, Duignan from Westmeath Sports Partnership.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mary Duignan. I work with Westmeath Sports Partnership. I commenced my role actually in 2008, so I was one of the first sports inclusion disability officers that were employed through the local sports partnerships. I suppose since its infancy and to now, I have seen an awful lot of changes within the programme, and probably as to what even inclusion would actually mean to me. My background would be, I have a degree in sports management. I went on then to study a master's in sports development with special populations, which obviously is why I'm in the role I'm in. And I think it would be appropriate for me to acknowledge as well that one of my first early experiences in adapted physical activity was through actually volunteering at an event in Athlone where I live, that Orla Dempsey was actually delivering through the Irish Wheelchair Association. So I think I must have been only out of secondary school. And that from that day on, it really did point me in the direction of APA. And it's why I chose my master's to focus on that area as well. And I was just reminded Orla that the other day that it's amazing how it's kind of come full circle. And now I'm actually joining up with the person that probably did inspire me on this road. But yeah, so that's my academic background. And then, like Orla and Elaine, I grew up in a sporting family, primarily GA. I played all team sports. I was the student, I suppose, that when I got to primary and particularly secondary school, any team sports that I could play, I was involved in. And I continued, I suppose. I chose then from a club level, GA was always my first love. So I would have played that for numerous years, and retired due to injury, not by choice. But yeah, that's me.
Great, thanks very much, Mary. I wasn't aware of that connection that you had with Orla.
Yeah,
that's lovely. That's really great that you're still, as you said, come full circle now, and you're working together on different projects. That's fantastic.
And to be fair, Orla wouldn't have been aware of that either. You know what I mean? I would have remembered Orla and her impact from attending that event. And I suppose through Orla's profession, she probably has done numerous events like that where she'd see people come and go. You know what I mean? But no, it was just, I suppose, when I took up the role, and I would have linked with Orla then through the Irish Wheelchair Association. And I don't think I ever actually told her that until quite recently. And I suppose that has come about by us, I suppose, professionally and personally developing this relationship, the both with our neighbouring counties, and obviously with Elaine, that, you know, that it just prompted me to actually just tell her that, because I think sometimes, I suppose, in COVID and everything else, it's nice to hear positive stories, and you know.
Definitely. I think having that role model or somebody that you were looking up to that early stage of your development as a coach or a sports development officer is crucial. And it's lovely that you're able to tell Orla. I think it's nice that that you're working together now, and you can still kind of learn from that experience. And I'm sure Orla's learning from you now as well, which is great. We'll move on to Elaine. So Elaine Igoe from Roscommon Sports Partnership.
Hi, yeah, my name is Elaine Igoe, and I work in Roscommon Sports Partnership as the SIDO. I've been in my role here since June last year. but I had been working here before that as the sports development officer and administrator in a joint role. Prior to that, I suppose we can come full circle as well a little bit with Mary. I worked in Longford Sports Partnership. I took on a placement there as I left my course from Sligo IT in health promotion, and I was there from 2010, and really enjoyed my time there. I worked on various programs, obviously on my placement, and then following on from that, they kept me on then ad hoc on tutoring on programs and managing some programs as well. So Mary had come on board in Longford then, and she was a joint role, I suppose, between Westmeath and Longford. So I got to meet Mary, and Mary, thankfully invited me out to join her on programs to assist. So, one of my first experiences, I suppose, with disability would have been on a program with Mary in one of the services in Longford, St. Christopher's, where we did sports hall athletics. And, it was an experience in itself for me. It was one of my first experiences, I suppose, with that particular target group as well. And we worked on sports development. That's what my role has been for the last few years on sports development, and it gradually kind of pushed me towards the cider role. So I suppose that's where we've come full circle with Mary. So I think we're an ideal team in that we've all had some connection with each other, and the fact that myself and Mary have both been in Longford, and then Orla's in Longford as well, it just seemed like a bit of a no-brainer, I suppose, for us to get together. So we're looking forward to working together from longer, hopefully, and we'll go from there. So that's kind of all on me, really.
Yeah, great, Elaine. Thanks very much. And again, it's nice that you've had that previous connection with Mary as well, and building the connection with Orla. We will talk, I suppose, later on in the webinar tonight about the programs that you guys have been working on together. I think it's really a really positive thing that you're able to do that for the people that you guys work with in your individual counties, and then trying to combine that work together as well. I think it's really powerful. I suppose in terms of the importance of inclusive fitness for people with disabilities, in your roles on the ground in your particular counties, does fitness and physical activity play an important role for people with disabilities in your counties? And what type of benefits do people get from the programs and the activities that you provide? Or I might ask you that one first, if that's okay, just around the benefits of physical activity for people.
I suppose the social benefits for a person with disabilities, to meet other people from similar backgrounds to them, to have that connection and to support each other. Program and that. I had a program there in January for people with disabilities, and I had 12 from a wide range of disabilities. We all came together, and it creates a good network. It created new friendships with these people as well. And I think that's very, very important, especially now with the lockdown. The social connection is massively important.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Orla. I think you're right to highlight the lockdown. I think that was really difficult for everyone, just around their social connections, but I'm sure for people with disabilities it was definitely a big challenge. Mary, in terms of Westmeath, what type of benefits are you seeing on the ground for people that are engaging in physical activity and inclusive fitness?
Absolutely, like the social benefits. I don't want to go back and reiterate what Orla was saying, but you can't put a value on the social benefits that people with disabilities get out of participating in the programs, and also we all know about the physical benefits. But I suppose in the situation we're in now, I also think the mental health and well-being, and that's even key right now. And I think it has been a huge part of the CIDR program for a long time, but particularly now with COVID, I think that's a huge element, and I suppose that's why we're linking up here today as well.
I know you've been in post for you were one of the original CIDRs, Mary, back in 2008, was it? Yeah,
2008. Yeah, when I first started. Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes over that period of time. What are the key changes you've seen, and is there more opportunities available for people now, or is there more awareness and stuff as well?
Look, to be honest, it's definitely not like to go back to 2008 when I started. I think we started off with now, and anyone can correct me on this because I'm going back a couple of years, I suppose. We started off as CIDRs and we concentrated on 4 sports, and it was kind of them that was the main focus for, I think, probably a year, 2 years. And then, to be fair to the LSP network, it was the first time I think Sport Ireland and the LSPs looked at disability sport, and obviously it came about with the employment of the sports inclusion disability officers. But since then, I think with the Cara, even yourselves, even going back then, even for me personally, coming into a role and trying to make some to develop it, like inclusion to me back then probably meant more about integration, and it probably meant about integration as in, maybe if I was holding a class in a local gym, that the class was delivered within the gym but still segregated, as where like now I look now and I think inclusion to me now is more about proactive behaviours and the actions people make for all abilities to welcome people with disability into sport, so they feel welcomed and respected in whatever sport and physical activity they choose. Because I think everyone should have the opportunity to be actively involved in sport in whatever manner that is, whether it's on the playing field or in an administration capacity. And I think what has really enhanced the SIDO programme, and even to kind of get over the barriers and people's attitudes towards disability in sport, is the actual enhancement that Cara Centre have brought with their training and education courses. Because when you're one person in a county, it was very hard to have a kind of far-reaching effect and to meet all the kind of groups. So I think by linking in what we're doing practically on the ground through implementation and promotion of sport and physical activity for people with disabilities, and now you have the training and education element. So you're bringing you're hitting a wider audience through your special ed schools, your primary, secondary schools, your coaches. It's far reaching, and it's going right now into the community, into the GA clubs, into the FEI, into the rugby, as where back then we only solely looked at 4 or 5 sports. So it's huge. It's come a long way.
Yeah, that's great. And I suppose one of the key things in that as well, Mary, would have been the recent kind of allocation of funding so that the sports partnerships can employ
Absolutely.
a sport inclusion disability officer. So like there's a sport inclusion disability officer in all counties now across the country, which is the first time that's happened, and huge opportunities there. And I suppose you touched on something very important there as well, is around the awareness and people being proactive around their inclusion.
Yeah.
And having the skills and the knowledge to include people with disabilities in whatever setting they're working in, if that's within fitness or sport or.
Absolutely. And I suppose what's really changed is like the support that the LSP is getting through your NGBs, whether it be local, regionally or nationally, which means now that you can actually put stuff back into the community and where children and adults with communities are. And then also you have extra support as well from your disability NGBs as well. So yeah, it really is worlds apart.
Elaine, I'm going to move on. We've touched a lot on the benefits there. So it's really just around maybe some of the barriers that you may see, and maybe not just in Roscommon, but across the country for people with disabilities. Probably trying to get into activity or sustain their activity within, if it's sport or physical activity or fitness. What are the main barriers that you can see across the board?
Yeah, well, I think the reason we came together in a program was to work around some of those barriers. We could, make use of each other's resources across the county. So one thing for me was, maybe I didn't have, a resource there, a tutor, let's say, who had a particular skill set that we might not have been able to avail of in Roscommon. So by joining together, I think we broke down some barriers there. And like Orla and Mary would have had longer term links than I would have had. So there was barriers for me, massive barriers, I suppose, out of the three of us on this joint program, I could probably found the biggest barriers because I was a newbie to it really. But the girls I could use their links and their supports to kind of get around that for County Roscommon. So, the likes of Orla's links there in, that she's already created with like the deaf community with Chime and that, and Mary would have had contacts as well, even with those communities as well, with working on programs previously. So it was to utilize those links, and I suppose that's what I would encourage for other sports partnerships as well going forward, is to utilize what's there. Cara as well has been such a support that you could pick up the phone and you can kind of work through the barriers. I don't really see anything at the moment. I think a year ago a barrier to me would be X, Y, and Z. It was very defined, but now I don't really see a barrier. I kind of see how do you work around it. It's just not there really. You know, you'll always find a method to kind of work around those barriers. You know, it's just a matter of creating those links. And as you touched on there, you know, with the provision of the SIDOs into every single county, the network has strengthened so much that, you know, I know with the regional meetings that we do, you know, I could pick up the phone to like Therese in Donegal or to, you know, Kate in Cork or whatever. You can kind of go all around the country and overcome those barriers. But for people themselves, you know, I think having the SIDO on the ground locally, that they can feel confident to send us an email or to link in with us. It's so much easier. Before I became SIDO in Roscommon, we were getting emails and we hadn't got one specifically on the ground here. So they were saying, oh, I've seen this happening in, you know, Westmeath, or I've seen this happening in Mayo, you know, or Sligo or whatever. You know, what can you do for us in Roscommon? And we just didn't have the resources there. So now I think you know, it's been a huge benefit to every person with disability in every county in Ireland.
That's great. Elaine, thanks very much for sharing that. And I think you're right around, you know, reaching out to people, and, you know, obviously you guys within your roles reach out to each other and share the knowledge that you have. And as you touched on there yourself, just for people with disabilities to have the confidence and I suppose the knowledge and awareness who to contact as well would be important, that they're doing that. And
yeah, you need to put yourself out there as much as possible, like advertise, you know, get promotion out there. You know, the usual ways and means, Facebook and that might be great for community-based programs, but, you know, for us, you need to link in with the likes of Chime and NCBI, like which we did for your European Week of Sport programs. So, you know, that was our way of working around it and getting those people into sport.
Great. I want to focus on now is just the program development, and particularly the way you guys have combined your 3 local sports partnerships together and to develop programs within inclusive fitness for people with disabilities. And one of the key programs that I want to talk to you about is the home workout series that you've developed as a partnership, and that delivering that through Irish Sign Language. Really what I want to look at is why you chose that program. What was the identified need there for the program? Orla, if you want to answer that one first there.
I suppose, Lauren, back in January, I had 2 participants who were deaf and hard of hearing, and it really opened my eyes to the barriers and how can we become more inclusive in getting deaf and hard of hearing people involved in sports and physical activity. So the struggle was during COVID, the lockdown, we had to identify programs that we could share together and what we could work on. So we identified the home fitness program. I was aware of John Smith, who's a CODA. He's a child of a deaf adult that was a gym instructor in Dublin who was able to deliver a gym program through Irish Sign Language. So this led to the discussion with the girls about, could we do something like that? But the barriers we had was the cost of getting this Irish Sign Language interpreter involved, and how would this work on a technological point of view with an interpreter, a gym instructor, and all the participants on board. We felt it would have been better, I suppose, having that one person that would have the ISL background. So I suppose that led into discussion with the girls, and we identified, I let Elaine speak more about the project because Elaine put the grant application together. So Elaine.
Yeah. So Orla, I suppose, was kind of, how to say, even like lead in on it nearly with, she had the link there, she spotted John online. I won't say you were Facebook stalking Orla, but it was a good ad. We found him online, like, and he had his videos uploaded, you know, during COVID, everybody was trying to adapt, and that was a great opportunity for us to see. So we obviously heard about the Innovation Fund, and we suddenly thought, guys, we need to discuss this, and we sat down together, and it just sort of, you know, to share the jobs out amongst each other. I submitted the funding application for that through Roscommon Sports Partnership on behalf of the 3 of us. So we got John involved, and we got the organisations then, the NGVs involved that we needed as well. We had tried to make contact with Deaf Sport Ireland and NCBI, and got links there and got talking to people, and made sure that they were on the ground for us to support us as well, because it was something, as Orla said, you know, there was a need there, and it really wasn't being looked at, and I know it certainly wasn't being looked at in Roscommon either. So we wanted to utilise the NGBs on that, and we got in touch with Sport Ireland, got in touch with yourselves as well to say that this is something that we're going to try and do. Make sure we had as much support in the background as possible. And we went ahead from there, I suppose, found out, costs, what was going to be involved in it, put together our funding application. And John was an ideal candidate who's really easy to work with as well, like just to tutor the programme for us and deliver it. So yeah, we went from there. We secured the funding, which was great news. And only for that funding, I suppose, I know, there's funding that has been available throughout the summer that should have been for programmes that were delivered on the ground. Yeah. And we had to adapt those programmes to suit, the current state of things, but we hadn't obviously budgeted in for the likes of the sensory or what we've done during European Week of Sport. So it was really new, and it definitely was innovative. So that kind of ticked the boxes, I suppose, for Sport Ireland and Dormant accounts. And we went from there on it.
Great. In terms of the resources that you guys developed for the programme, I can see Orla has some behind her there. Mm-hmm. Can you talk me through kind of some of the, Mary and Elaine and Orla as well, just some of the resources you've developed through the programme, and what were the key things you considered when you were developing those resources?
Yeah, who wants to touch on that one?
Mary, maybe if you want to come in that one.
Yeah, well, I can kind of give a brief breakdown into the home seated Pilates program and the resources that were developed for that program. So I suppose with the home seated Pilates program, we targeted adults with visual impairments. Okay. Our link there was with NCBI and Vision Sports. Lisa, the tutor, is a current tutor with Longford Sports Partnership and had been delivering programs through the Sports Inclusion Disability Program for Longford Sports Partners for a number of years. So that was an ideal fit there. And through liaison with NCBI and Vision Sport, Seated Pilates was identified as a possible program. So then what we did, because it was for adults with visual impairments and we were using technology and we're going to be putting it out through Zoom, we felt it was very important that we had that link with Vision Sports as well. So we linked Lisa, the tutor, with James Flanagan, with NCBI. He's their fitness and recreation coordinator. And he worked with Lisa to ensure that the video content, the resources that we put out through that were pre-recorded, and that her live sessions, that there were audio descriptive, as most participants would be relying on verbal cues in relation to this program to partake at a level that they were comfortable with and they were getting the most out of the program. So to be fair, NCBI were great there, and the fitness and recreation coordinator was brilliant to liaise with Lisa on that. I think they did maybe an hour or 2 hour session on that, and then they could go over and back. So that I suppose when we got to the stage to actually to do the resources and put out the pre-recorded videos and for the live sessions, that we all felt that we had met what we set out to do, to have an accessible program that could be reached, that could be accessed by that target group. So on that program, we put out, there's pre-recorded videos that the ladies and gentlemen can do from their own home at a time that suits them, and also they actually go live as well and do a Zoom live program on Saturday mornings. Another contribution to that program, I'd have to acknowledge that what was down to the community resource workers with NCBI, Elaine and Tricia locally, and then also Derek, who works with NCBI under the technology training and support. He actually linked in with all the participants that were signed up into the program and did one-on-one Zooms with them, made sure that they were comfortable with the technology prior to us going live with our programs. And I have to say, like, without that link with the NCBI Vision Sports and ourselves, it may not have been as possible or as user-friendly and as good an experience for the participants that were on the program. So that's probably the resources that, I think that's all the resources that we put out in relation to that program. We also developed a booklet for children with disabilities, and I'm going to hand you over now to Orla, and Orla can talk about that one.
Great, thanks, Elaine. Or Mary, sorry.
Yeah, I suppose we found it difficult during the lockdown as well, that we were conscious that children with disabilities were not getting access to physical activity and that. So during the summer, we got calls from the schools, about virtual sports days and things like that. So Longford Sports Partnership developed a booklet that the schools could use, that the kids could do the activities at home. So the three of us were discussing on developing a resource that could be a pan-disability resource for all children with disabilities. And we did our research, we looked into different booklets, and so we decided that the Longford one was the best one to go with. That was easy to adapt.
Not biased.
Did Mary and Elaine agree with that, Orla?
We'd no choice.
So we broke it down into 4 sections. So we had fun games, we had movement games, skill games, and sport type of games kind of thing. So we selected 16 games that would fit into 4 in each category kind of thing. So it worked out very well. We tried to ensure that with pan disability, and we gave little inclusion tips for each of the games, and that everything was done from scratch with a resource that we had in Longford. We always kept in contact with each other to ensure that the content was accessible and that it could reach a wide audience, and that. So we're also conscious to get the message out that children should be doing 60 minutes of activity a day. So we came up with the Fit from 6 activities by 10 minutes a day challenge. So that was one of the things we added into the booklet. So we hope when the children get this booklet that they'll do this challenge, and then they can send the entry form back to us, and they'll get a medal and a certificate as well. We also included a sports pack, which consists of cones and bean bags and different things like that, chalk as well, so that the kids had no barriers to do the games and that. We publicised this during the European Week of Sport, and we got a number of contacts from the calls from the parents and that. One parent contacted us, and they had a child that they wanted their brothers and sisters involved in the activity. So this was an ideal booklet. They were delighted to get their hands on this. We will be also promoting this again during Fit for All week. And then our plan is we'll be linking in with the local physios, OTs, and the schools and the SNAs and all that to ensure that we can get this resource out to everybody. It's a fantastic little booklet, and I think it can be used for many years to come. You can play with your friends and family, and a lot of work was put into it, and I think it's a compliment to the three of us working on the resource, and we hope it will be of benefit for children with disabilities.
That's great, Orla. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I think you're right to acknowledge the work of everyone there. I think there's a huge amount of work that's gone into that, and the planning of it and bringing things together and ensuring it was accessible and the right activities for those age groups as well. And I think you touched on something really important at the end of that then, is that the activity could be used within a family setting. So a brother and sister, even parents probably as well, taking part in activities. And I think as we probably have learned so much over the last number of months, you know, we probably need to, the situation we're in, we're not able to socialise with other people outside of our home. So the more activities that we can do as a family or as a small group of people that is accessible within the home or with your brother and sister, the better. I think that's a really good resource that you've developed, and I'm sure there's loads of people throughout Ireland who would probably like to hear more about it and see maybe and use the activities. The other program I want to touch on, Orla, with you and the guys as well, is just the outdoor gym program that you've developed in Albert Reynolds Park in Longford, and just using the QR codes as well in terms of the outdoor equipment there. Would you mind just explaining the program, Orla, and just around how it developed as well?
Yeah, again, from the program we had in January, we were conscious that we wanted to, the people that were involved in the program, the 6 weeks gym program, we want them to link them on, to continue on their gym program and that. So I was working with Chime, and we identified that an outdoor gym program would be suitable. This was back in March when the weather would have been a little bit better, and that it's a free resource that anyone can use in their own area, and that. So it was agreed that we would deliver a 6-week outdoor gym program for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. We selected the Mall in Longford, which is also known as the Albert Reynolds Peace Park, because they have about 16 pieces of exercise equipment on a loop around the park, and it was ideal for the members nearby to attend an accessible loop and that. So I wanted to ensure my materials that I was giving to the people that were taking part in the program was accessible and that. So I learned from the gym program, I would video the exercises that they need to do at home. I would add in subtitles, and I had Fiona from Chime who did the sign language part of it. So that led me on to ensure the outdoor program was accessible in the communication element side of it. So I was lucky to have Chime on board, who did the sign language interpretations for the video. I had Lisa Kenny, the tutor, who demonstrated the exercises, which we filmed on each of the exercise stations. We had Longford County Council on board to design a map to show everyone where the location of all the different gym equipment were. And obviously I contacted Cara for advice on how to be inclusive in the delivery of this programme. So when I did a site visit to check out the gym equipment, I noticed that the outfit.ie had the instructions on the piece of equipment, and they also had a QR code on it. But when you scanned that code, it led you to a page on the website with a list of all the instructions, but there was no video, or it wasn't very inclusive for a person who was deaf or hard of hearing. So that led me to develop the video clips, and the QR code was so simple to design, and we printed off labels that this was for the deaf and hard of hearing individuals. So now they can go to the park, they can scan their QR code, and this will bring them to the Longford Sports Partnership website to that particular activity, and have a detailed video with subtitles, Lisa doing the demonstration and explaining the exercises, along with Damien, who was the guy that did the sign language part of it, to explain the exercises. So it was important for the deaf and hard of hearing people to have accessible content. Some people would look at the sign language part, some people would look at the subtitles part. So I felt it was a resource that it was inclusive for the deaf and hard of hearing people, and we're hoping to expand it to other parks in the Longford area as well. And I hope that this resource can be used to other outdoor gyms around Ireland, or even the indoor gyms. You can absolutely adapt this to make it fully accessible for the deaf and hard of hearing people.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree, Orla. I think it's something that a lot of people could learn from, and I suppose in essence it was a small change. That's a small change in the information that was provided through the code. Obviously a lot of work went into it, but in essence it was a small change that opened such an opportunity for all those people that are engaging in that activity now. And I suppose they wouldn't have been able to do that fully before that happened. So really well done on that. And again, as I said, I think it's something that people could really consider moving forward to make those pieces of equipment more accessible for people within those communities. In terms of, we want to touch on, thanks for sharing all that program with us, guys. It was really interesting, and a lot of work went into it. And I suppose the partnerships and the connections that you've developed yourselves as individual sports partnerships, but then coming together, and that strength of partnerships really allowed you to explore new ideas and open up new opportunities for a lot of people there. So well done, really well done on that. What I want to touch on now with you is, I suppose, what we've all been living through in the last number of months was COVID-19. And I really want to focus on, if we can, on the positive aspects of COVID-19 in terms of your work. Has there been anything that's been positive out of it, or have you seen any developments that you've been able to use in your own work that has resulted as a result of us being in COVID-19 currently? Mary, I might get you to answer that first, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. I suppose from the LSP point of view, a positive would be it really strengthened our relationship with our neighbouring LSPs like Longford and Roscommon, and that's probably why we're sitting here today on this call. And also, I actually feel another positive is actually the amount of resources that are now out there, and that have been developed through yourselves, the Cara Centre, and obviously other LSPs as well, that is available for all of us to share and utilise and get out to the house homes and get them resource packs out into the communities where they're needed, and into the disability services, the HSE offices. And also, I suppose, from a personal point of view, technology. You could ask David, a colleague of mine in the LSP. Technology was never my strong point, and I'm sitting here saying I'm still learning about Zoom and all the different apps that we've been utilising. I suppose you realise that we can have a benefit as a SIDO by using this technology, and I suppose looking at the programs that we come up with for European Week of Sport, that we've actually put these programs into people's homes. I think is huge, and obviously like the booklets and things that we developed with other LSP. So I actually feel right now we're probably sitting with more resources than we ever would have had to, and I suppose COVID has allowed all of us an opportunity, and probably the time management, to actually sit down you had the time to do all these things that you probably wanted to do, but just never had the time to do because you were kind of out on programs, and it was always about planning and what was next. And you kind of get caught in that environment. So I think COVID has allowed us the time to kind of slow down and develop very proactive materials that can be used across all people with disabilities.
Yeah, I agree totally with you, Mary, and I think you're right about the technology. We've all been adapting through the last number of months and getting used to living our lives through Zoom and different platforms, and taking advantage of that. I think we will continue to do that when we get back to, I suppose, a bit of reality or normality even.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be good to have a blend of maybe our traditional methods, but also then using the technology we've all got used to. In terms of moving forward now, and you guys working together, Elaine, is there any programs that you're planning together in the future, or do you think you'll continue to work together as a collective partnership?
I don't see why not, unless there's a big falling out now over something. But
that could happen.
Yeah. At the moment, like I don't know, it's countless phone calls and WhatsApp video calls between ourselves. I'd say between us, like we probably talk to each other like 5 or 6 times a day. It's just, and honestly, it's all about work. But we are always thinking and talking about, what's next and where else we can go. And as I said, like earlier, like with the resources that we have in every county, like maybe we excel in one area and maybe fall behind in another area. So, like Roscommon, we've great like cycling tutors where they might not be as available. Maybe I'm not saying that they're not as available in Longford and Westmeath, but cycling is one of those areas that we do a lot in Roscommon, and it's one of the programs that we were looking at. And during Bike Week, I had released just a small taster, just for disability cycling, and a little session just with Dara Feely, and he just went through cycling, and if anybody had any questions, then they could come back and he could do a one-to-one session with them, and he'd show them how to use a tandem bike and a hand cycle and a trike and that sort of thing maybe. And we got a few calls about that then as well, like it had good interest. So following on from that, we're looking at hopefully doing a cycling program. And during the summer, obviously, as we were saying, with COVID and everything that was going on, in Roscommon, our primary focus was on doing like recordings and videos rather than the live Zoom sessions, simply because we were creating a resource that if it didn't suit somebody today to join in, they could join in their own time, and it seemed to work really, really well. So that's what we're hoping to do with the cycling program. Now, I know there was a football skills program we hoped to do. The Couch to Cut 3K went really well, so we hope to maybe adapt that. And looking at, I think in March, none of us expected to still be where we are right now. We really just thought it's only going to be like 3 weeks and we'll be back at it. And now we're stuck into another 3 weeks again of restrictions. So, we need to look at the bigger picture here. And we definitely, even if we go into the live Zoom sessions, we still have resources available on YouTube, countless resources that we can give out to other people. And we kept them, I suppose, as open as possible, like for just hand disability, so that at least, people can, from all backgrounds, can kind of take part as well, and take part at home or take part within a service whenever they get back to it. So we have no intention, I suppose, of stopping. The team is working well. We're really tapped into each other's resources, and like we get on well, as three of us do get on quite well, and we haven't had any issues so far. Please God, no more will happen, and COVID will ease off and we'll be able to get out on the ground maybe. So like I suppose hopefully that would be the future aim, would be to deliver something on the ground. Originally it would have started with the bocce league that we were talking about, and we decided that we would do county bocce leagues, and then we'd come together and do like a 3-county blitz type of thing.
Great.
You're winning teams that go together and you'd all come out and meet up at a central location. And that all fell by the wayside, unfortunately. I think Mary might have gotten some of her leagues started, but we didn't get started in Longford or in Roscommon. So
all about good time management, Elaine.
Yeah, Mary was ahead of the game. She knew this was all going to happen. So hopefully, like when things get back on the ground, like we have that work done, we have bocce ready to go. We've all the registration sheets here sitting ready to go. So hopefully, we'll hit the ground running when we do get back on it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then I suppose the fact that I had worked across Longford and Westmeath LSP for a few years, there was programs that I would have started in Longford and Westmeath at the same time with the same target groups, bringing in the same linking with the same NGBs. And when Orla took her role as Igoe, the program that some of them initiatives would contain the FAI. There was the GA, inclusive GA programs, tag rugby for adults with intellectual disabilities, linking in Leinster rugby, and then I suppose through just to continue that the participants, that when there's cross county, it's not just about the participation element, but now you're actually adding in the social element, the competition element, and I think that's important, that it's not just about participation, but you keep continuing to strive to keep adding different elements to different programs, and then obviously we discussed Elaine and Roscommon Sports Partnership have come on board, and that's why I suppose we've linked in now. We developed the Midlands Bocce League with Kickstart to Recovery between the counties. We have the Twilight programme with Leinster Rugby, and I'm working with the FAI and GA as well. So it's something that we had started and we fully intend to finish out, and then hopefully expand on that.
Great.
After COVID is long gone.
You're the three of you are definitely going to hit the ground running whenever we get back to normality again, which is great. And I think Elaine, and you've said, Mary, that you have all these ideas and these kind of processes already developed. So it's just a matter of time, I suppose, before you guys will be hitting the ground again. So yeah, that comes from that friendship you all have, and I suppose that working relationship you have as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to finish off just to find a wee bit more about your own activities, guys, in terms of what physical activity or sport or fitness activities that you all enjoy. So Orla, I might start with you, and just in terms of when you have some free time at the weekends or in the evenings, what type of activities do you enjoy taking part in?
There was a time I was good at basketball, and after I got older, and after I have low impact type exercises and that, so I like to go for walks in the evenings, or we've got some fantastic cycle waves around here as well, so I love doing cycling as well. So I suppose that's one of the main sports I took up during so yeah, that's all I do really.
Yeah, making most of the outdoors and the location that you're living at, that's the way to go. I think I done the same myself. I bought a bike at the beginning of lockdown and hadn't cycled in a long time, and I've been out probably double figures, well into double figures now at this stage, and just finding out about routes and things around my own home here as well. So it's been a new experience for me as well. Mary, I know you've a bit of a background in the GA. What type, and you maybe aren't playing GA anymore. What type of activities do you enjoy now?
Yeah, I suppose my background was GA and soccer, primarily GA. Through injury, as I said previously, I had to cease that. I suppose through injury and rehabilitation and coming back from I had major surgeries on my ankle. That led me actually more down the route of individual sports, which I think probably in time I would have ended up there anyway, but it probably speeded up that process. So for me then it was swimming, bike and gym, but the gym it always has to be kind of low impact, but swimming and cycling are huge for me right now. And I suppose I don't probably have as much time as I'd like to have, having a 1.5-year-old daughter. She definitely keeps me busy, but the bike is great because it's something that we can do together and do as a family anyway. I would love to be back running. My ankle just won't hold up to that. But so it's I'm afraid it's swimming and cycling for me. But it's not all bad in Westmeath. We have fabulous greenways, Greenway here, and the Royal Canals as well. So you can get out and, like you're saying, learn new routes and make use of what's around you right now.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to do it with your daughter as well. I think it's always a lovely thing, isn't it? And I suppose you're the role model for her when she's grown up in terms of her own physical activity then as well.
Well, I hope she sees it like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll finish off with you in terms of activities. What activities do you like doing?
I'd love to say it was something really, really exciting, but it's not. I suppose sort of like the girls as well. Like when I was younger, I touched on nearly every single sport that would go on. I was a bit of a tomboy. I always liked to get mixed in with the lads, even out on the pitch playing rugby and football and everything really. But as I got older, I suppose college and stuff, you know, the usual that we see in sports, why people drop out. You know, I was that typical person why you drop out of sports. But as I've gotten back into it, I've really, you know, I think with COVID as well, you really embrace the outdoors. But it was actually my family got together on New Year's Eve just gone by. Whether it was a couple of drinks in the hand that made the decision first, but we decided to make a New Year's resolution, and we took up tennis. And I have to say, tennis at the moment, like I probably play about 5 times a week. Yeah, we go out and we've met new people and everything. Like it's the social side of things as well.
Yeah.
But it was the kind of, was the functionality of it at the moment, because you know, you can play it 1-to-1. It wasn't something that was restricted. Well, it was restricted obviously during the lockdown itself, but you know, we're really getting into it now, and you can play it 1-to-1, play doubles. So that really suited me, and it's great to be outdoors as well. So I'm actually from Longford, and I play in Longford. So the tennis courts there, they have an all-weather court, so really enjoy that. And you know, similar to the girls, making the use of the outdoors at the moment. We haven't really got much choice, but it's so surprising what's actually on your doorstep. Guys, I know Longford gets a bit of a slating, but it's really not a bad county.
I don't know who said that, Elaine.
We have lots of nice walks and places to go, you know, so Centre Park is there as well, so it's obviously something going on. But you know, even Roscommon and stuff, like I lived in Roscommon for a few years, and there's just so much amenities on your doorstep. I don't think anybody should feel that, you know, they need to be part of a team and part of sports, you know, all the constructed kind of team sports and stuff. There's lots of things to do anyways, and get out into the outdoors and go for a walk. Cycling.
I suppose that is one of the positives, I suppose, that has come out of COVID. And if you talk to Get Ireland Walking, like that, the numbers are up nationwide for all age groups in relation to walking. Yeah, absolutely.
I've never like
walking, cycling.
Going into the office, like I'm coming in maybe 2 days a week. I'm working from home the other days, and I'm just astounded by the amount of people I walk on the amount of people I meet, out walking or cycling on the country roads. It's just increased. The presence of people out on the roads has just increased so much since COVID has happened. And you know, Sport Ireland in the monitor last year even noted there was such a notable increase in activity. And I think going into next year, they're going to see a shift in that activity to individual activities, but I think it's going to be a huge increase, and hopefully it is.
Yeah.
I suppose it's a positive challenge for the LSPs as well, and Sport Ireland and yourselves, Cara, to kind of to try and retain some of that increase, to make sure that we don't see a significant drop post-COVID. So I think being involved in sport, we're all competitive by nature anyway, so we certainly like the challenge.
Yeah,
definitely. Thanks for sharing that with us, guys. And I think you're right. We've definitely grown to appreciate our surroundings much more, and how we can engage physical activity within, you know, our own home, and even just in our local areas as well. I think, as you said, I hope we'll continue to do that through the next couple of years as well. I just want to finish off by thanking every one of you for taking part in the webinar this evening. Really, really great insights into the programs you've been developing, and the connections and the partnerships that have formed to make that happen. And I've no doubt over the next couple of months and years ahead that they'll continue to work together as a really strong network of partnerships working together, and continuing to make huge strides in improving opportunities for people with disabilities in sport and physical activity in your area. So I want to thank you and congratulate you for the work that you're doing, and wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.